back there? He had one of those quick hoops through the winter, and he's eating turnips out of it right now. And it survived the snow load. Comment here.
Since we got the Johnny's guy here, I noticed that Johnny sells I think a bender that would allow you to make either greenhouses, hoop houses, or tunnels out of chain link fence top bar.
That's the 12-foot bender that we're talking about.
Is that?
If you want to see an example of a tunnel that's made with that bender, it's right in the north porch.
I was just wondering how that tested out compared to your standard gauge roof house material for sturdy.
Well, it works pretty well because it's smaller to begin with. It's only 12 feet wide. When you get bigger, there's going to be more forces there. Yep. There's going to be more moment arm.
Yeah. Comment here. Jack, you got to talk louder.
Well, I can hear.
The top rail fence material will fit inside of each other, so two legs actually go in the middle. You don't need anything to mess with in the middle. Join perfect.
Yeah, I built a 12 by 100. I think it was last July, and it was before Johnny's started working with the guy in Texas that they got the bender from. Yeah, it's amazing. Like we put in a ridge pole, and I feel like it's pointless because when you bend it, it's actually 17. It goes out 17 feet, so you literally have to have two people push it as hard as you can to get it in the ground. So there's so much tension that we had all the snow on it, and I had to go out there and knock it off, but it wasn't bending in.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that comment was he had, how wide was that, 17?
12.
12 feet, and it survived the snow load too.
Easily, and I didn't even secure the sides down or put in walls.
Let's move on to the rodent one. Who had the question about rodents? Somebody had a question about rodents.
Well, I've got a question about rodents. I wasn't the one that asked it, but what do you do about moles?
Yeah. Anyone have solutions? I guess lots of us have questions. Who has solutions about voles? And by the way, Mark, that spinach that didn't look good, that could have been vole feeding. They actually will feed on fall planted spinach and eat the older leaves, making the plant look pretty ratty this time of year.
Can you read out your urban?
That's right. Our ermines disappeared. It was there for a week, and we tried to catch it with a have-a-heart trap, and we couldn't find the right bait. We used a whole different kinds of meats and things because they're carnivores. We never caught it. So it's gone.
I can give you some bowls.
For urban, they say that anise oil is one of the best lures.
Oh, really? Thank you. If it comes back, we got it. And then it'll be rented. Elliot, I wish Elliot were still here because he had a design for a trap for voles. And if I could probably email it to people. If you have a question about catching voles, I can email you a picture of Elliot's trap, which is basically, it had no bait in it. He said they're too smart to be baited. But it was a trap that they're curious, and they go into things if you design them right. And he built something to trap them after they go in.
I've made those traps, and they do work. And the trap inside is the better mouse trap you use. And I had to catch 50 to 60 voles last year.
Why don't I get you two guys together?
They do a substantial amount of damage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. About 2 years ago, I watched a tomato plant. When I do my hoop house, I put plastic covering the whole floor and then rows of tomatoes. And I was down at one end of the house, and all of a sudden one of my tomato plants started to wiggle like this, and then all of a sudden disappeared.
Oh my gosh.
It was only a foot tall. So. I don't think we're going to get anywhere with the rodents beyond that. Sanitizing the soil, cleaning the plastic, sanitizing the house. How many people here do something to sanitize it, use a chemical to sanitize the plastic in the inside of the house? Nobody. Anybody do anything to the soil? Nobody. Okay.
One of the reasons that, as Tom was saying, to not have stuff in the greenhouse all year long is we do, like you were saying, Tom, we clean everything out at the beginning of December, remove everything from inside that could be mouse nesting area or any living plant tissue at all. And we do our composting until that end because it's easier to move it in the fall while it's soft and the ground is easy to till. So that's all done. And then when you start again in the spring, you're not starting, well, we have a different building we do our propagation in, so we don't have to start the greenhouse until the end of March, just about now. So it's basically been a desert in there for December, January, February, and half of March. So really, except for some disease spores that overwinter in the soil, it's a really good way to get rid of insects or certain diseases that might otherwise be in there in a year-round kind of cycle.
That's a very good comment, because one of your biggest problems when you try to do year-round, especially when you try to do tomatoes and peppers in the summer and spinach and other greens in the winter, are aphids. And David's way is getting rid of those aphids.
We have sort of an opposite view in that when you clean everything out, it's like using sterile potting soil. You're sort of inviting all the bad guys to come in unchallenged. So we enjoy having the occasional unobtrusive weed in the corner. We're actually planting garlic as well. Adam was talking about the edges being colder, so those are the beds. We have beds that are edges of our greenhouse. We plant garlic in those because the garlic doesn't mind the cold. And that gives us garlic scapes in May and bulbs in June. But that's, the garlic is already up, 4 or 5 inches now, by now.
Can everyone hear Tom?
Sorry. we grow garlic in the edges of our greenhouse. We plant it usually after the ground gets too hard to plant garlic in the fall. We'll go into the greenhouse with any leftover garlic and plant it on the outside edges of beds in the greenhouse that are too cold to grow most things comfortably. And also, we can't grow trellisable things at the edges because our greenhouse sides slope in.
Opposite view. Lisa, you had a comment.
Yeah, on the aphids, we used to try and grow greens in the winter in every house, and the aphid pressure on the winter greens would get so great that starting seedlings in that house at the same, in front of the house near the furnace, we started seedlings, and I got the greens in the back of the house, and had several years where I had vine and the aphid and the ladybugs and stuff get rid of the aphids, and now I just let that one freeze all winter, and that's for seedlings and nothing else. Elliot's new thing on aphids is he starts watering in January even though you don't need it, and doesn't get the aphid buildup that usually happens like February, March, and I tried that this year and it worked like a charm.
Wow.
Just watering the aphids off of the plants.
Yeah, I think it's like reducing the nitrate buildup in the plants. I think it's getting a little more leaching going.
That's an interesting tip. I like that.
Yeah, he suggests that aphid pressure is directly correlated with nitrate uptake.
Yeah, and Bruce just pointed out the aphid pressure would be correlated with the nitrate uptake. And so that's a great way of reducing it, yeah. For those of you who, I've always harped on this, know what your diseases are. There are a lot of diseases in hoop houses. There are a couple that sanitation makes no difference on. Gray mold, leaf mold, these are things that are all over the place anyway, and cleaning the house isn't going to help. Verticillium, a soil-borne disease, sanitation's not going to help with that one. But there could be other things in your house. You know what it is. If you do need to clean the house and the equipment in it, oxidate is a material that would be labeled for that. And oxidate is a hydrogen peroxide solution.
Mark Holford once, Mom can't mention that he sprays everything down with hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah. And so that's what I would recommend, but I wouldn't do it unless you had a reason to. Partly because I believe strongly what Tom's talking about. You like to keep that population of beneficial organisms in there, and oxidate's going to get rid of everybody.
I almost hate to bring up this subject, but does anybody have any trouble with clubroot and brassicas?
Question was clubroot and brassicas. Anybody having that in hoop houses?
That's good, because it's almost impossible to get rid of.
Yeah.
I know there's some communities
disease?
I just don't have an answer for possible. No, it's a fungal disease, it's soil-borne, and it has an extremely long residual in the soil, resting spores. Plus, it overwinters or harbors in wild brassicas in the area. So there have been broccoli and cabbage fields that have been literally wiped out with it, and commercial growers have gone out of brassicas, avoided them for as much as 20 or 30 years, moved back in after that time and got it the first or second year all over.
The comment that Bruce is making is about clubroot, which is a disease organism that can persist in the soil without a host for 10, 20 years. Adam, have you seen anyone have a problem with brassicas in hoop houses, winter brassicas? And I haven't either. That's interesting. I just never heard of that yet.
No one grows broccoli or cabbage or cauliflower in hoop houses for us because there's.
Yeah, but we're.
What's that?
Mustards and arugula.
Right.
Yeah, nothing in.
They're susceptible to it, but I haven't heard of that problem yet. Top money crops. So let's go down the line right here. What do you guys recommend for your top money crops and favorite varieties?
Almost anything if no one else has it.
Tom didn't use the microphone again, but he said almost anything if no one else has it.
Yeah, basically that's why we grow our cucumbers in the greenhouse. We grow only the earliest varieties of cucumbers because we're trying to get a 1-2 plant. So we grow the early variety and we're growing in the greenhouse. So that gives us, it makes them come in that much earlier in the season. When we can get $1.50 a piece for cucumbers, people don't bat an eye. People buy a half dozen at a time. Whereas if you try to get 50 cents for them later in the season, they look for somewhere else.
When you plant them in a greenhouse, they're awfully tender. When would you plant them in a hoop house?
If it's heated, you can plant them now.
What about if it's just a regular hoop house with no heat?
If there's no heat, a couple of things. Cucumbers are a plant that's very, it's not just frost sensitive, it doesn't like to cool. So if it's 40 degrees for a week, they may just kill over thinking life isn't worth living. So if I was going to plant them unheated, maybe 2 to 3 weeks before your last frost season, 2 to 3 weeks before you put them out ordinarily. But you might be able to gain another week or two if you were to put row covers over them in addition.
Okay.
But the biggest problem is if you get a week of overcast weather and it's 40 degrees outside in the daytime and maybe 20, touching frost or just a little bit below frost, typical late April, early May weather, then the cucumbers may still not make it. Of course, your backup plan is to have a bunch more cucumbers ready to go in to replace those, so that if you don't get the very earliest ones you could have possibly gotten, then you can substitute by putting in transplants a week later when their weather's a little bit warmer.
And let me add to that, with cucumbers are particularly sensitive to cold soil, a chilling injury, even though it's not below freezing. You don't want to put cucumbers into a 50-degree soil because their roots will stop working. What you'll actually see is the cucumbers look wilty. Even though the soil's wet, you're wondering why they're not getting any water. And the answer is they're not getting any water because their roots are dying or at least not functioning in the soil. Adam, top moneymakers and favorite varieties?
For tomatoes, we grow big beef mostly, and then we do, for our cherries, we do black cherry, either sun gold or sun sugar, and then usually some kind of red. We've done super sweet 1 millions, and then we usually have red pints for $3, and then next pints for $3 for cherries. And then cucumbers, we do divas. May 1st planting date is safe planting date for us with a row cover. Tomatoes and peppers are April 15th. And then winter stuff, the salad mix and spinach, and I put it along the same lines of if you have green stuff in the winter and there's not a whole lot of other people that do, kind of no matter what you bring is going.
Mark, favorite varieties?
I don't know. The overwintered spinach, we plant whatever we got left over from the spring. Some of it definitely does better, and we should put a tag.
What's your top moneymaker?
Oh, we don't really look at it that closely. I mean, it's, the goal, I think, is a little bit beyond just having a top moneymaker. You know, clearly it wouldn't be sweet corn. But if you can get it to grow and produce bountiful yield, there's a lot of flexibility on the price for these off-season things. So it seems like you can turn anything into a good moneymaker if you can find a high enough paying market for it.
Lisa, you want to comment?
Biggest moneymaker for square foot is Claytonia. Claytonia, in the mixes of miners lettuce and catalog salad. You can't sell it separately, but it's great to add into a mix. There's a lot of weight to it, and it just keeps coming and coming. But you'll watch it in the spring, it'll start to flower, and then it immediately sets seed. So if I were smart, I would not rotate Claytonia because it's gonna come back the same place every year no matter what.
Anybody else want to talk about top money makers for them or favorite varieties?
Is anyone doing the English cucumbers? I've heard one or two farmers recently that started doing those instead of just the standard ones in the unheated houses and have been really happy. But
Telegraph, the kind of European.
yeah, the tall, yeah.
I don't market. I mean, my neighbors will take those as fast as I get them to them. But they do great.
Lisa.
In the summer, we really liked buffalo tomatoes because it had the mold resistance, like stunningly mold resistant.
Are you grafting?
I've started. I started it on the heirlooms. So this
Can
year,
everyone hear Lisa, by the way?
this year
Yeah,
we're going
good.
to grow asada, which is supposed to have the same resistance, but it made a huge difference going to a mold resistant tomato.
Yeah,
You
and
can't
those
get
of you,
buffalo anymore, right?
what's that?
You can't get buffalo anymore, right?
So we're going to asada.
The comment brings up the question of diseases. If you start growing tomatoes, you probably will eventually get into diseases, and you're going to have some way of managing it. You're going to have to learn that, and you may have to turn to disease-resistant varieties, and that's what Lisa's talking about. Yeah.
Is there anything you can do to prevent disease?
Yeah, you have to, depending on which disease it is, and we actually, for those of you who don't know it, I put out a pest report every week or two during the summer months, and in that pest report, thank you. In that pest report, I'll talk about diseases and management and so on, and so you'll see what's coming. If there's too much of an array to get into it here, unless somebody has a specific problem.
Where do we find that report?
What's that?
Where do we find that report?
If you go to the MOFGA website, they're put onto the MOFGA website. They get on there probably 2 or 3 days after they go out by email. And if you want me to email it to you directly, then email me and I'll put you on the list to get it. And you can reach me by either copying down the email address I'll give you right now, or going to the MOFGA website. You can contact me right there. It's eSideman@mofga.org. Dave, did you have favorite varieties or top money makers you wanted to? Anything beyond what was said here? Okay. Greenhouse suppliers. I think there are a bunch of new people out here. I'll make a plug for my favorite one, and then we'll go out to everybody else. Ed Persons out in Moultonborough, New Hampshire, Ledgewood Farm. And if you just Google Ledgewood Farm, New Hampshire, you'll come up to him. And my favorite thing about Ed is that he's the farmer who got into this greenhouse building business when Otho Wells at UNH, one of the guys who started this hoop house frenzy, he worked with Ed Persons, and the two of them actually got this going. Ed's got about 20 houses up on his farm, and you could go out there and see all of the different kinds he makes and what he's using them for, and that trip out there is worth it. So that's my favorite place. Anybody else have other ones they'd like to plug?
I'll second that.
Oh, Tom will second Ed Persons.
If you want movable houses, Four Season Tools has been really great to work with.
If you want a greenhouse structure, keep an eye open for somebody who wants to sell their greenhouse. Because if you can go in and disassemble the greenhouse, load it onto a snowmobile trailer or on a roof rack, bring it home, that's the cheapest way of doing it, because you put a lot of your own labor into it.
That's how we got this one over here. Yeah.
I was just going to testify to the last part of his statement. I got a really good buy on one of Ed Person's houses that was in my hometown. But by the time I got it all down and moved and put back together, with the pieces no longer being numbered and so forth, I decided I'd been further ahead to just have Ed deliver one.
Yeah, when you disassemble it, you gotta remember that you're.
Yeah, mark the pieces, that's a very good comment.
Because Ed delivers them with every piece numbered and marked, because every hole is custom drilled for that piece.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I put mine down.
And it comes with an instruction sheet. It reminds you of building model airplanes when you were a kid. It's step by step, put A with B and screw it together with screw G. Yeah.
And you can call him anytime.
That's right.
And he always responds.
There's a lot of people like Ed Persons, as you can see. That's a very good comment. You can call Ed on the telephone and talk to him directly anytime.
I know several of us in the room have bought huge greenhouses, and that was the last one I bought was $5 a foot, including the end walls. And we were able to load them without taking them apart on the trailer and deliver them to site and just put them back out.
Wow.
$5 a foot with end walls.
I think the site that I got the hoop vendor is hoopvendor.net, or there's,
I don't know that one.
yeah, it's the gentleman in Texas that sold the design to Johnny, because he worked with Johnny, but he has like a professional one where it's like a single piece that you can do 26 to 30, and of course you wouldn't do this in the winter because it doesn't have braces, unless you put a bunch of braces, like you want to just put up a quick with top rail fencing, it's pretty cheap.
You say Ed Pearson's or
Ed Persons. Persons, Moulton Borough, New Hampshire. If you just Google Ledgewood Farm. Jack.
The Amish down the road there have put their greenhouses on a knee wall in order to gain more height, so.
Uh-huh. That's an interesting idea.
That's ventable, to vent that side.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, back there.
I'm just wondering, anyone who has Ed's houses, why they're so much more expensive? I've got a spreadsheet going, we're about to buy two, Griffin, Atlas, Rimmel, Ledgewood, and Noble. And Ledgewood always comes out way higher for the same gauge and same diameter.
The same gauge steel, that's what I was going to say. Check the gauge steel, because that used to be the big difference with Ed.
And he delivers free too, at least he did for me, so.
Delivering free is one thing.
But including delivery from Atlas to Georgia, it comes out cheaper than Ed with free delivery.
Has anyone, this is Atlas Greenhouse Company?
Yes.
Has anyone bought anything from them?
Yeah, we've built a couple atlases. They're really nice. I should say, is an employee of Michigan State University economic recommend endorse, certified or something, any company product, trademark registration, blah, blah, blah. So, this is not an endorsement. No, but we've built Atlas houses. We built 3 of them now. I think they build really nice houses. We built Ed's houses, Rimmel. We built probably.
You build Ed's houses all the way out in Michigan?
Yeah, we got one at the student farm. We try to build, we've got probably 8 manufacturers at the student farm.
Oh, it's
and then at Penn State there's.
So can you maybe comment on comparing them without an endorsement?
I mean, I think that Ed Hunt makes really nice houses. I think Rimmel makes nice houses. I think Atlas makes nice houses. I think Four Seasons, we built one of theirs last year in Iowa. They make nice houses. And if you're looking for stationary, that style, Zimmerman, so Zimmerman and Four Seasons are the same house, but Zimmerman just doesn't make it movable and Four Seasons are movable. The Zimmerman houses are really nice. CBS out of Ohio is they make nice as well. That's an Irish gentleman, Eric.
Are the Atlas houses pre-drilled?
Oh. No, they're
That's
not.
a big difference in your cost right
The
there.
question was, is the Atlas house pre-drilled?
In the Zimmer one in Four Seasons are. I mean, they're pre-drilled for trusses and that, but for your bow, they're not. Right? So which means you just gotta, if you do go that route, you gotta build them flat, because it's no fun to stand them up and have them.
But that'll affect the difference in your price quite a bit, is whether or not your house is pre-drilled.
The Rimmel doesn't use bolts, they have the connectors. They have for the purlins that come across the bows, they have the connections that don't require bolting. So.
Interesting.
And you would think drilling wouldn't be that big of a deal, but I think it is.
You can't do it with a cordless drill.
No.
So you gotta get your electricity out wherever you're doing it.
If you didn't hear Lisa, she was exaggerating. He said you can't do it with a cordless drill. This is hard. No, I'm saying it's the other way. It is part steel.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, no, you get, like, there's not enough power in the little ones with the
Right.
battery. Yeah, it's hard. I can't do it at all.
Maybe a good thing to add to that is building with impact drivers is a beautiful thing. That as soon as we made that switch, it was like it came free in a, you know, not free, but it came in a kit. We bought it for the drill and the sawzall, the circular saw, and then it just happened to be in there, and it was like when you're putting in, you know, 500 million tack screws, those things are just beautiful to sink stuff in. So they're the little ones that are like this big, and it, you know. And you can buy them individually, you know, for $100, or you can buy them a yellow and black one with a company name I won't say, so they think it's an endorsement, make really nice impact drivers.
We extended, put up an end person's house in 2001, and we just extended it last year, and it doesn't make it that style anymore, but he went back and made us another 50 feet of it, which I can't imagine anybody else doing.
Yeah, and actually he did the same thing for me. I wanted a house of a particular size he didn't make anymore, and he specially made my house for me too. We have run out of time. I want to thank all of the speakers for coming here and everybody else for coming today. Thank you very much. And before Abby mentions it to me, remember to fill out your evaluation.